The conditions of approval and the permit fees applied to a land development project in California can break the project. What that means is those conditions and fees can turn a profitable project into an unprofitable project, right? And we actually see that on a fairly regular basis here in my practice in the private land planning that we do, because California is a tough place to develop, and we put a lot of fees on development. So one of the most important things we do here at Redefined Horizons in our role as a private land planner is help our clients determine as soon as possible the conditions of approval and the permit fees that are going to apply to a project. Now the problem is there's not a good way in California to get an accurate estimate of what those costs will be without spending some money up front. And we're always very honest with clients. We tell them, look, you could possibly spend some money up front here to figure out what it's going to cost to get all the way through the development process, and you may find out that you don't have a profitable project, and then that money that you spend up front is at risk, and you're going to potentially spend that money and lose it because you're not going to have a project. You're going to decide that you don't have a project. So we always try to be really upfront with our clients about that, but it's just part of the land development process here in California. So one of the things we work really hard to do here at Redefined Horizons is we want to keep that investment that a client makes on the early stages of a land development project to as a low amount as possible, while still providing some degree of certainty about what the ultimate costs to develop a project are. And so one of the ways we do that is we do that by phasing the development process. Okay, and so that's a really important part of land development strategy in California. So what we want to do is we want to get some conceptual designs into the local agency, usually county or city, and then get some feedback from them in writing about what conditions and fees are going to apply to a project. Now, we do have the option to get, if you come into my office and you're working on a project in Central California, I can usually give you a rough idea of what the agency is going to require, and we can even put together some preliminary cost estimates, just because we know, with the local jurisdictions, we have a rough idea of what they're going to want. But every real estate project is unique, and the conditions of approval issued on every project are unique. Some agencies are better than others, so some agencies even have a set of standard conditions of approval, which is really helpful. But even then, I don't know of one agency in California that just issues boilerplate conditions. There are always conditions of approval tailored to each individual project. So what you want to do is you want to spend as little money as you can up front to get some accurate idea of what your costs are going to be, right? And we do that with phasing. So as for an example, we always give the client and the option, if they're doing a subdivision, we will prepare the tentative subdivision map. And this could be for a actual subdivision map, 5 lots or more, or a parcel map, 4 lots or fewer. But we can always prepare a tentative map with a preliminary layout without going out to spend the money on a full boundary survey, if the client wants to do that. The only time we get nervous about that is if we're close to a minimum lot size, right? That can cause problems. But if we're not worried about being close to a minimum lot size, if we're not worried about potentially losing lots because of the acreage, then we can put together a tentative map based on, some record information. If the client wants to do that, it's not risk-free, but and what that does is that allows the client to get some feedback from the agency without having to pay for a full boundary survey if they don't want to do that. And there's other things like that we can do to phase the development process. Now, it's not perfect because local government agencies, cities and counties, a lot of them like to keep their wiggle room. Right? So they don't want to give you rock solid answers. They want to keep things ambiguous, and because they want to be able to come back and hit you with fees later on in the development process. We don't have as much of a problem with that in the Central Valley and in the Sierra Nevada, but when we get over on the coast, especially in the Bay Area, we have a major problem with that. I'm fighting that battle right now with one of the cities over there in the East Bay. So one of the things we have to do as private land planner is we got to hold the agency's feet to the fire, because there are certain, if you check certain boxes in California by law, the agency owes you answers to questions about the cost of development, that answers that you can rely on, right? That's the way the law is written in California. So sometimes you have to push back against those agencies and say, hey, you guys have an obligation to tell us what these costs are. You can't leave it open-ended. And so part of what we do as private land planner when we represent our development clients is we're having those conversations with the local agencies. But phasing can help you reduce that upfront cost, right? And so if you're working with a land development client, they should be explaining those options to you, right? They should be explaining to you how you can phase your land development project and what the risks of that are and what the advantages are. And so if you're not having that conversation with your land development consultant, either your land surveyor or your private land planner, then you need to get a different consultant, right? Because that should be part of how they're providing value to you. The other helpful thing about phasing, I mean, I'll talk about this more in another video, hopefully, but you know what, when you phase your development like that, it also allows you to respond to changing market conditions, right? As the real estate market changes, we've certainly seen that happen in the last 2 years here with COVID-19. But, you know, land development takes a long time in California. I tell people, you know, it could take 1 to 2 years to get a simple parcel map approved, depending what jurisdiction you're in. And, you know, the real estate market can change quite a bit over a 2-year period. And so the other thing that phasing allows you to do is it gives you some flexibility, right? So that you can change the ultimate use or configuration of your land development project depending on how the market conditions change, right? So that's something else that your land surveyor or your private land planner should be talking about. So key points from the video are you almost always have to spend some money in California upfront at risk to get good information about what your conditions of approval and your permit fees are going to be for a land development project. But your consultant should also be looking at how they can phase your land development project to keep that upfront investment as low as possible while still getting some certainty on the cost side of the equation, right? And if you're not sure about that, you're not sure if your consultant's doing that, or you're trying to develop property on your own and you need help with that, you're welcome to reach out to my team here at Redefined Horizons. That's something we can help with.